why is it so hard to move through like the simplest, most basic fears that hold me back? A lot of the times it feels like I'm almost become addicted to like these low level fears and like the comfort of making plans, instead of ever chipping away at them. I can really only talk about my own experience here. Like, I'm trying to get a show started in a general sense where I travel and talk to people who are doing compelling things or things I want to learn from or whatever, just like doing interesting things in the world. And it's a very basic and open premise, and there's millions and billions of people in the world doing things that they would love to talk to me about. But it's taking way too long to just get it started. And I finally made some progress this week on actually like reaching out to people and taking the steps of like literally just getting the first show in existence. And one helpful way I've come to think about it is it's all in this example, this is all just for my own like practice and benefit in getting the reps here and like getting over this low level fear in this certain example, because a lot of it's about just knocking down that first door and just taking the simplest steps of outreach and putting together even the most basic conversation or show. Like, I always just get stuck in planning loops, like thinking ahead, like, well, how am I gonna make a good show, and like who's gonna watch this, and what's it gonna turn into, and everything that's impossible to plan when you just got to get it rolling. And so the helpful way I've come to see it is like a year or longer, I just got to develop this marathon thinking, and everything, all the reps starting out, it doesn't matter at all what happens or who I talk to or how perfect it is. It's just all about those will mainly benefit me in getting momentum and getting repetitions and ideas just from being in the arena. And so I just don't know what that is, like why. I mean, it is a slightly abnormal thing, it's becoming more and more normal because everyone's creating some sort of content these days, so that's part of it. You kind of get trapped in, well, why even try this? How is that going to work? What's exactly valuable that's going to lead to? Like, just work on something else. No one else is doing stuff like this. And so that's part of it you get trapped in, I guess. But more so, it's just like convincing yourself and like putting the new label on yourself of, okay, now I'm someone who doesn't make shows. I don't reach out to people to have conversations with them. So I think really all it is just a switch, and I might have already just flipped a switch because I've finally done some basic outreach. It's just like a switch in your own head of, I'm not that, but now switch flipped. Okay, now I am someone who makes shows, and that's who I am now. And so here's what I do as part of that process. And yeah, like I could aim high, aim low, not low, but just people who would be more accessible and more willing to talk to like an unestablished show. Obviously, big, high-profile people aren't going to agree to a no-name show, but there's millions of people who would, and life is happening all around, and everyone is doing something for the most part that, especially if they're like trying to start a YouTube channel or like a business or whatever, like they're gonna want to talk about it and share about it, and like that's the whole goal, to align those conversations with topics and people and missions that like are actually compelling to me, and just go from there. So I get stuck in that a lot, and then like yesterday I reached out to some people. I didn't hear back right away, so then my mind starts to like scrap the whole thing, which is crazy. Because I just gotta enter the numbers game, you know. I gotta ask more and more people, because whatever, 10 or 15% will probably be open to hearing more about it, or agreeing to an interview or whatever. And it's just all numbers. And so that's what I get trapped into a lot, that fear of, well, the first person didn't respond right away. There must be something wrong with the entire thing, and they'll just scrap it all. And it's just crazy how I let that get to me. And it's just a nonsense fear, you know. And so it's been helpful to recognize it's just something I need more reps on. And I gotta block out all that stuff I've recognized that comes in, and just work through it. And then by getting reps up, it will all come more naturally, and, you know, it'll slowly get established. I can't rush. And so that's just one example of that kind of feeling addicted to the fear of not actually starting, and just like writing all these plans and visions of what the show can be, which is good to some extent, like structuring a watchable show. But, you know, I have a lot of experience in editing and like structuring things, so that's not really a worry. And like at this point, it's really just something you gotta get going. And the ideas will come with, as they pertain to like the specific subject. You know, I'll have ideas based on what exactly they are, what their deal is, what they're doing, you know. And just in general, as I go, it'll develop. So I don't know, I think it's certainly something that applies, a principle that applies well beyond just someone starting something like this. You know, it's just these fears that get in the way of a lot of things. And even things we don't notice, you know, like I've started to notice just the tiny hesitations and like things I don't do. You know, I won't go somewhere or do something because, oh, what if whoever's there, what if they see me, whatever, you know, just like meaningless things. And it's like, what am I trying to protect? Like, this is all temporary. I'm not even, we get so in our lane of like this, of me, and like identity and ego, and I have a career to build, I have money to make, I have a whatever path to get on, which is fine to some degree to, you know, give your experience structure and stuff. But ultimately it's like fear is always false and destructive, because there is no ultimate fear. There's nothing to fear ultimately. And all our fears are this tied in some way to like this fear of death, or like the fear that there is something to lose, which is not the case. We are like fundamentally safe in what our nature is as eternal awareness. And so there's nothing to fear. But, you know, maybe that's the trick of it all. There has to be while we're here, you know, because that's kind of the whole point of creating this game. So you have decisions to make and like things to figure out in that arena. You know, if everything was just safe and perfect all the time, there wouldn't be drama and these feeling of stakes to everything, and like one life, you know. Oh, I gotta get it right, and so maybe don't want to do that, because what if that's not quite right, and then I won't be on the right path, and all that. And it's all just this fear of death and fear of loss, which is impossible, because nothing is ever lost. Everything just is the way I currently see it. As whatever, very abstract spiritual lens, of course, I'm talking about there. And I don't pretend to sit inside of some enlightenment or anything, ever, if at all. So that's just the lens that resonates most with me on paper or logically. So it's kind of where I'm at right now in seeing things. I don't think there's anything to fear. And not only that, it's not only like, who cares if you're a complete failure? I mean, definitely. Why does that matter? You know, I'm sure you'd have an insanely cool or whatever, diverse, interesting experience. If you're like whatever you imagine a complete failure bum, whatever, you know, that's interesting in its own right. But I'm not saying just that. Not just like that worst case, whatever you would imagine as worst case. I mean, that's part of it. Like ultimately, it's all going to be some form of experience, which is interesting. Oh, better do this. I'm not sure if they police the seatbelts in this town. I need to buy more seatbelt colored shirts. Then they can't ever say that I saw you weren't wearing your seatbelt. I don't know. My dad got a ticket like 10 years ago for not wearing a seatbelt, so now it's just something I think about. And I usually wear it, of course. I just forgot today, safety first. I do usually wear it. That wasn't really a freeway. Definitely if I'm cruising on the freeway and have seatbelts on. Anyways, you don't care about that. What were we talking about? The fear thing. So that's part of it. Like, ultimately, there's nothing to lose, and like whatever. That's all just eyes you are putting on yourself of like, oh, what will I be perceived as? What even is I? And it's all temporary, and all those eyes die as well as your body's eyes. You know, folks. That'll be a future video. All eyes die. So stop talking about eyes. Stop worrying about eyes, because all eyes die. That's a good nugget, I think. That's part of it. But the other part is people don't, that's all phantom expectations. Like ultimately people want you to try and like be yourself. What the most generic platitude there is. But like seriously, we think like, oh, it's going to be weird or like whatever. But deep down, even if like you're not getting thousands of likes right away because, oh wow, he tried something original, I'm so in love with that. It's not that, of course, but just deep down, it's like cool because no one is willing to do that. And so we might not like and comment all the time on people trying their own thing, but deep down, we respect it. And it's very cool because most of us are afraid to do that ourselves. And we're like, wow, how are they able to do that? You know, I wish I wasn't so afraid of expectations and failure and all that. And so the other side of it is not only like, who cares, worst case failure in life or whatever you imagine, but like it's actually better in most metrics you would try to classify things as, to try and to branch out and to just put your head down and just block out. And I'm talking to myself here again because I'm trying to get much better at all of this, just like blocking it all out and just being completely unafraid to like reach out to people, to go do things without this worry of what's the exact perfect content that this is going to create, and like just treat things as more of a personal exploration for a while. And yeah, I'll probably set up a camera and record the conversation if I'm there, but I wouldn't have to, you know, because that's not even, if it got 0 views, it would still be insanely valuable, like for creating that own process and my own process as a creator in getting those reps, you know. And then every single 1 view above 0 is an insane bonus. Like someone would click on that or I think I had a valuable show to offer, you know. And so then it's just brick by brick above that. Once I can get it rolling and established in my own head and process around things, because I don't know, this is a bit of a secret channel for now. I have a couple other channels that, nothing crazy, some moderate success, not in like not like in personal videos like this. I've done like some documentary style videos more tailored for the algorithm or existing audiences, which is kind of a cheat code or hack, you know, because you just create something on this platform where YouTube knows, like a musician or a comedian or something, create a nice video on that person that the fans of that would resonate with because you're a fan of it too. And so you create this thing that everyone enjoys, then that does well, you know. because YouTube knows exactly what existing audience segment to show it to, and they enjoy it and they resonate with it. So it makes sense, and it's a good formula for like what I call easy views or whatever, even though it is valuable content still, because you're creating something that community enjoys. But I'm in a place now where that, I don't know, it's just hard to like sit at your computer in your office, you know, and just make those types of videos constantly, because we're struggling here, folks. We're social creatures, you know, and like I got to get out and involved in exploring like current life, at least part-time, and you know, maybe a mix different styles of different things I'm working on in the future. But that's the whole goal with the show I've been talking about and using as an example in this show. Is this a show? It's kind of a show. We're always fireside, folks. Always got a fire next to us. I thought that was a good folks, you got to do something simple premise to stand out, right? And it'll take a while. This channel especially is just absolute long haul, you know, just genuine folks. We're just hanging out, genuine thoughts, not so much like personal life vlog, but you know, using examples where I can, and just kind of creative concepts. I'm kind of into the whole spiritual lens of things, you know, exploring different topics and things in that arena too. So probably be a mix of that, but just talking about literally whatever's on my mind or I'm interested in as a broader topic or discussion subject. So it's really like a 10-year, posting a few times a week, you know, for 10 years, obviously you're going to get somewhere if you like are genuine and are pushing the things you're trying to explore and like make relevant to a larger discussion. So that's all this is. But obviously you can't just talk to yourself. This is just kind of an outpost for some other things I want to get going. And I think the main inspiring one, just like for my own creativity and like collaboration and connection, is just this basic type of show where I can go around, have short interviews with people, kind of champion what they're doing, try to communicate their creative thoughts and like whatever type of venture they got going creatively or business wise or nonprofit wise or whatever they're up to. So yeah, that's the whole I've had, you know, these low level fears holding me back from starting that, the whole perfectionism thing. But I think things are looking up, folks. Sun's out, got a nice morning, so I think we'll get over it. It's just gonna take some practice. So we'll see you next time.